Good afternoon, Sankara TV viewers. So, I shall continue where I left last time about this Advaita, how Gautapada and how Mandukya Rishi and subsequently Govindapada, all of them demolished the theory of dualism. They prevailed upon Advaita, oneness, that is called Advaita, no Dvaita. Why? Because they do not want to see differences in humanity. Everybody is one and the same. Everybody should be united. Everybody should love each another. Even a devil should not be punished, because actually the devil does not exist, and even if it exists, it has to be transformed. Punishment is not for the immortal. The immortal never punishes anybody. It's pure love. It's absolutely a wave field of love and bliss. That is their idea. You see, even in modern times, how it is applicable, let us see. Let us see the views of some great persons about this illusion. Dr. Albert Einstein himself said, the distinction between the past, the present and the future, the distinction between the past, present and future is stubbornly the persistent illusion. He was very clear. It is the persistent illusion alone that creates, that gives the distinction between the past, the present or the future. Actually, there is no such a thing. Before that, I would like to talk about an interview with Dr. Edgar Mitchell, an astronaut who was there in the Apollo 14 mission, and how highly he speaks about our Sanskrit literature. He was interviewed. He says, as he was returning from moon in the capsule, in the spacecraft towards the earth, he felt a sense of a strange feeling. What about this universe? What is this world? What is his life? How mean-minded some of us could be, because even when you fly in an aircraft at 30,000 feet, when you see down the small tiny dots of land, you yourself will have a feeling, how mean-minded I am to fight for a piece of land in this earth. It's a natural feeling, and that some feeling crept in Dr. Mitchell's mind. And he said he came to the earth, he landed on the earth, then he was going through a lot of literatures, but finally when he went through Sanskrit literatures, he found about Savikalpa Samadhi, that is oneness in separateness. Everything is one, though we see separately, oneness he found, that oneness, that Advaita in the separateness which we experience all of us mostly separateness. We are not prepared to accept that you and I are one. That is practical 99.9% except for those realized acharyas and souls. 99.9% we accept separateness. It is our property, your property, my commodity, your commodity, my watch, your watch, whatever it is. So he found absolute satisfaction when he went through this Sanskritam literature about Savikalpa Samadhi. I told you, even in modern physics, mathematics, we have this concept of illusion. As Einstein said, everything is stubbornly persistent illusion. What did Aristotle say? If everything occupying the same space is at rest, occupying always the same space is at rest, then that which is in locomotion, that means which is moving, an object which is moving also occupies that same space always. At a moment, the flying arrow is motionless. That means, I would give you an narration, an example. at moment A, the arrow is found in a point P in space, for example. At moment B, the arrow occupies a point B. At moment A, P, at moment B, Q, sorry. Now, assuming that regarding that time is successive movements A, B and C, when B takes over the movement A from A, there is that instant of time wherein A and B are equal. That particular instant of time when the movement B takes over from the movement A, at a particular instant of time A and B are equal. But the points P and Q are not equal, they are different. If A and B at an instant of time are equal, P and Q should also be equal. That means the flying arrow is motionless. The arrow has not moved. That is what the explanation to Aristotle's thoughts. He writes on physics some years back. Occupying that space, always occupying the same space, he says. And at any moment what happens is the flying arrow is motionless if the object of the thing in locomotion occupies the same space. You see, these types of illusions, unexplained paradoxes are also there. In mathematics, I will give you an example. If you ask me 1 plus 1 is equal to 2, very correct. But I am going to give you an illusory trick. I say 1 you keep it 1 and the other one you take it as half plus 1/4, half of the earlier number, half plus 1/4 plus 1/8 plus 1/16 plus 132 plus 164 plus 128 plus 1 by 256 plus 1 by 512 plus 1 by 1024, it goes on and on. It will be an infinite series, never it will come to an end. But they are all finite fractions. 1 by 8 is 0.125, 1 by 4 is 0.25. They are all finite fractions, but infinite series. So you will never come to a halt to that series, it will be infinite. How will you come to an answer? That means, suppose you take a square, you are going to fit in with squares. The square you do, the first square is half of, the second square is half of the first square, the third square is half of the second square, the fourth square is half of the third square. Likewise, you can keep on, you can never fit in the square. So what it means, illusion is there everywhere. There is a set of field in quantum physics and in normal physics. Both have their own realities. Both are there in illusions. In quantum physics or in normal physics, for example, if you take an iron ball, if I roll it on the ground, the energy is lost in the form of a heat, and the ball, the iron ball, small ball, it comes to a rest. I can calculate the distance it has traveled, if you have the velocity, if you have the mass, likewise. But if you take in quantum physics, quantum means microscopic, sub molecular physics. If you take in quantum physics, the molecules in air constantly bump against each other. They must also lose their energy by way of heat and come to rest, just like the iron ball loses its energy by way of heat and comes to rest. But in here, in quantum physics, the molecules, the air molecules do not come to rest. They keep on bombarding each other. There is an illusion as far as I am concerned. There is an illusion as to which is real. Just like the waking state or the dream state, as I explained in my previous episodes. There are illusions. You cannot come out of those illusions. But for a practical normal living, we assume things and go on. But we are in that illusory field. So with this, what we can understand is the logical arguments of Gaudapada, later on by Adi Shankara Bhagavatpada, also and earlier by Mandukya Rishi, Govindapadas, they all say believe in Advaita philosophy only for the sake of humanity. Vasudhaiva Kudumbam. What you feel is an Atma is there in you also. Means there should not be any differences amongst human beings because we are all one. If there is difference, there is problem. You cannot afford to have a difference. That is the concept and not the concept of any atheism, not the concept of non-belief in God. In fact, Bhagavatpada Shankaracharya goes and worships in Kashi temple even though he preached what is known as Advaita. His famous deity is Kashi Vishwanatha. He also worships Mahavishnu. He is a practical religious believer. Acharya is one of the greatest philosophers Bhagavatpada the world has ever produced. The world has ever produced. The point is here, when you have oneness, where is the question of birth or death? When everything is one, except through illusion, you can have a change in form. You also really do not die. Now, I shall just go into the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which is it's a very great concept. You may think that it is a tribal thought. It is for the tribals. It is the stories or fables meant for the tribals and not for the modern man. But on a deeper analysis, if you go through those Tibetan Book of Dead, which I have also given in detail in my book, Do You Really Die, along with the appendices, a lot of them, about 12 of them, which talks about those prayers, English translation, you will find that at the deeper level, the concept of illusion was very well defined and how it fits the thinking that you cannot live in this world without a moral authority. You cannot simply dismiss everything and say, it is all illusory, so I do not care about it. Here, this science of this book, as I explained, I will tell to you very clearly. Now, this Tibetan Book of Dead was written by, as I told you in one of my earlier episodes, was written by Padmasambhava, a mystic, and he wrote it in Sanskritam. He wrote beautifully in Sanskritam. He was actually from Swat Valley in Pakistan, that is the northern western provinces bordering Afghanistan or all those other Central Asian regions. He then migrated to Tibet, wrote this book, kept it in pieces, and then so that he wanted Tibetans to upgrade themselves in philosophical thoughts, spiritual thoughts, and then read the book. And accordingly, around in the 13th century, a Tibetan Lama took everything, collated and gave this to the world. This book is in two parts. The first part, book 1, and the second part, book 2, and the first part, book 1, has again two parts, and the second part, book 2, has again two parts. The first part, book 1, the first part, that is the book 1, the first part is called Chi Bardo. See, Bardo, the entire book is called Bardo Todal. Bardo means death plains, death, the field of death. Todal means liberation by hearing. Now, I am not able to pronounce it exactly in the Tibetan way, but I am pronouncing through the English way. So, this book is liberation by hearing for the dead persons. Now, in the first book, book 1, the first part is called Chi Bardo, where when a person dies in Tibet, in the Tibetan world, they place his body on the right hand side. Just like when Buddha died, they did not place the body on the back side or on the front side. They placed it on the right hand side. Buddha died on the right hand side. And then totally they do what is known as chanting for 49 days, they say. These Buddhist monks or priests, they will surround the body and chant the prayers. Actually, as per Buddhist way of life, you should know these prayers, you should have studied these prayers while you were young, throughout the course of your life. However, these Buddhist lamas, these priests chant to the dead person, calling him a noble one as soon as he died for the first 3.5 days. They say within the first 3.5 days, the Bardo body should have gone into the state of liberation. Now, what they say is, the first day, the dead man, actually his soul leaves the body and does not go anywhere. It is there in the Bardo body. The Bardo body is something similar to this body which was earlier existing, that is the human body. And this Bardo body is also very powerful. It can migrate to any place it wants, into the mountains, into the valleys, before it enters liberation, or it comes back to the circle of life and death. It is very powerful. It can see the other humans, but the humans cannot see the Bardo body. And that is why in Tibet, in Tibetan customs, the dead person's relatives do not cry when the person leaves a body, because their grief would affect the dead person's Bardo body, the dead person himself, who is in the form, in another different rupa, in another different form. So, the first day, the dead person, the Bardo body, he sees a clear light and also a dull light. The clear blue light is actually dazzling and frightening, very clear, very dazzling. And the dull light is something which a person can accept and enter. But the caution here is, if you enter the dull light, you would again come into the world of the cycle of life and death. You will come back to the world. That is another thing. But if we accept this dazzling, frightening light against your own resistance of entering it, if you accept, you enter Buddhahood, you enter liberation, you enter that state, the Turiya, where you never come back. Manavam avartatam na avartate. That is what Chandogya Upanishad says. I told you, you go into that area, that Brahmaloka, so that Manavam avartatam, where Manu is always whirling, swinging around. Manu means humans. You will na avartante, you will not come back. Even same thing Brihadaranya Upanishad says, Tesham punaha na avrittihi. Of those, there is no comeback. If you go to that stage, there is no comeback. That is what the Upanishads, Mandukya also says. Once you be in that state, there is no question of you being created again. There is no creation. So Buddhist also says, if you enter that liberation, you don't come back. Now, this dead person, the Bardo, can flee. He can neither accept the dazzling white light, not he can go to the dull light, because he prefers not to go. Why? Because these priests who are surrounding his body, through their prayers, communicate to him, come on, you enter only the dazzling white light and not the dull blue light. If you enter the dull blue light, you will come back. But he is afraid. He is a man practically seeing. He is a man who is actually getting frightened, because it is frightening, terribly frightening. So he can flee. When he flees, he comes to the second day. That is the second stage. This is the first stage. Now the second stage, again he sees the secondary blue lights. The first is the primary clear blue light and the dull light. The second stage, the second day, he sees the secondary blue light and the secondary dull light. It is also frightening. So, if he accepts the secondary dazzling, frightening light, he enters into Buddhahood, liberation. He goes to that seventh stage, the Turiyam. But in spite of the Lama's prayers, the monk's prayers and advices, he is not, if he is really frightened, that even if your father says, come on, do jump, and you see a deep well, I am here, my son, jump, I will catch you, we will hesitate, is it not? In the same way, the dead man's soul, that is, which is in the Bardo body, could hesitate even if the monks say. So it may accept the dull light. If it accepts the dull light, it comes back to the world of creation. If it doesn't accept both here, if it flees, it comes to what is known as the third stage. The third stage is called, the pronunciation is something like Chunyago Bardo, they say, which means the experiences after death. It comes to the third stage, it is not liberated. First 3.5 days it takes, appears. It has to be liberated by these prayers, advices, instructions from these Tibetan monks, the Lama. If they don't do, then he comes to the third stage. See, incidentally, when I come to the third stage, which is part 2 of this book 1, that is called, I told you, Chunya stage, you may think it is something like a fairy tale or some tribal thoughts. Absolutely no. What they say in that book is, what Padmasambhava says is, during your period of time in a human body in this world, if you have not trained yourself to be to meditate or in leading a good karmic life, then your senses will be adapted to suppose evil karmic life. Then you will get frightened. Even at the smallest instance, you will accept the dull light and you will come back again. You understand the concept? The concept is very simple. If you have not led a karmic good life in your existence as a human being in this world, suppose you are a terrorist, you are a murderer, you are a robber, you are a killer, you are a liar, then your Bardo body could be weak. The Bardo body would naturally accept that light, that is the dull light, again come back. So, we will go to the next third stage tomorrow, that is the Sunday, and in the meantime I would again request that if you want this episode to continue for some more time, I would like you to talk to Shankara TV for funding financially or for co-sponsorship because of our limitations. Because of our limitations, especially in costs involved in camera charges or shooting charges or satellite signal charges. I thank you all. See you tomorrow. Thank you.